And you're very welcome back to episode number 3 of the Final Whistle.ie Ladies Gaelic Football Podcast. What a dramatic week we have seen, and we're now getting closer toward the knockout stages. The senior quarterfinals and the intermediate quarterfinals have been decided, and we have one round of junior action now this weekend. We have a lot to unpack on this week's show. Of course, I'm once again joined by Joanne and Claire to break it all down from the senior all the way down into the junior championship. We'll start with the senior, and we'll start with one of two fantastic results for teams this weekend. In Group 1, Tipperary getting the better of Donegal and now marching into the quarter-final stage. I think Tip have had a fairly roller coaster year by their standards. I think they were disappointed with the way their Munster campaign had gone and maybe the league as well. But I thought watching their performance against Donegal the last day, it looked like it was their standout performance of the year. You know, they were 5 points up at half time, 8 points to 3. They looked very, very strong. They kicked on. I think that their defence just absolutely shut up shop once Donegal did come back into. I think they scored 1-3 without reply. They looked very, very strong as well. But when you have the likes of Anna Rose Kennedy and Aisling Maloney both getting 4 points each, I think Tipperary, they looked very, very strong in the end. From the Ulster point of view, Joanne, is that an eye-raising result to see Donegal now going into the relegation playoffs?
Yeah, it's crazy. I think, well, especially like you said, from an Ulster point of view, like there's a team that was in the Ulster final this year, and now they're in senior relegation. Like it is amazing what can happen week to week in ladies football, and it is class to see. They probably knew, obviously, it would have been a tough challenge, like traveling down the Tip. I know I was chatting to some of the Donegal girls, and they were leaving at nearly before 2:00, I think, with Donegal rally on the Friday. So there, you're taking off work. It's a long travel time, with all them wee things, especially in them massive games where, there's a lot more pressure on every single score, every single solo mistake. There's a lot more heat to it. I think it was always going to be a tough game for Donegal. And again, I think they're still regrouping. They're kind of getting those young ones back in, new management this year. I think all them things can come to the forefront of your mind sometimes when you're in them pressured moments. But like you said, they fought back seriously well. But, Tipperary have some outstanding players and I suppose are used to that experience. But again, it's amazing to see Tipperary, what was it, since 1980 or something, that they haven't made a quarter-final. Is that it? Yeah, it's unbelievable too. Like I seen Aisling Maloney, share that, and it is as much like it is a big thing to celebrate too, even getting that far as well.
Because they have been soldiering for so many years to get to this point. And when you look at, last year, they were in the relegation playoffs. They had to fight their way out of it. They got through it, retained their place, and tried to build this year. I know you have experiences of playing against the likes of Aisling Maloney. And when you have someone like Aisling, I remember watching her in the Munster series when they played Kerry in the draw down in Tralee. I hadn't really seen much Tipperary, and I wanted just to go in and have a watch of it. I thought they were fantastic that day, but when Aisling is at full flight, she is absolutely unstoppable.
She's a phenomenal player. And I've probably the privilege of watching her both in Gaelic and AFLW, and she's just a natural athlete. But even her reading of the games, both games, just very intelligent player, very, I suppose, what a lot of coaches try to coach kids is that, to be that way bit cuter, to kind of draw the frees, to cut back, to lose, get that separation off your defender, all the things that just come so natural to her. And she's phenomenal to watch, and she does seem to have that kind of leadership about her too. It's not just Aisling Maloney show. She brings players into the game, she gets the most out of the players around her as well. So yeah, it's amazing to see her just strive in her peak for a career, I'd imagine. Or maybe she's only starting.
I was just going to say, sorry, Joanne, I was just before you said it, I was thinking the few times I played against her in the league and stuff, you'd always notice, like you just said there, she's this star quality player, but she brings the team around her with her, and kind of, she's no more or less important than any other player in the team. And you really get that sense from her as a player that she gets that this is a team game. And yes, she has that, as I say, absolute star quality without question, but she gets the most out of the players around her and therefore gets the most out of herself. So I think that's a very special quality to have as a footballer or a sports person.
Because I was going to pose that question to you, Claire, because I know you've also come up against her, and I suppose from the defensive perspective, when you're going in, taking on a forward like her, like how do you manage to get the mindset right when you know you're coming up against a forward that can, you know, as I said there, like when she's on form, when she can get the space, you know, when she gets a sniff of the post, she's going to take it, and 99 times out of 100, she's probably going to put the ball over the bar.
Yeah, well, look, I was a blessing in one way that I lack height, so I was never directly asked to mark her. But that's, but like I said, though, the thing is, with someone like her, you think, oh, she's going to get the ball and, you know, pass to no one and bang it in the back of the net, and she's capable of doing that, and she's also capable of putting it across the bar by herself from further out. But the threat as a back against her is that she's bringing your player into the play as well. So you can't just kind of go forget everyone else and go to Aisling, because the minute you do, she's passing across the way. So, like I said, I think that's a really probably maybe underrated or under appreciated kind of element of someone's game, is that yes, they have this ability to change a game and to be really impactful, but part of her impact is how she brings the players around her with her. Like, so yeah, not the nicest prospect, but as I say, lucky with my height, I've never been asked to directly mark her.
That result, of course, sent Tipperary in now into the quarterfinals in second place, and of course Galway, as we spoke about last week, had confirmed their place in the top of the table going into that draw. We'll touch on that later on once we get through all of the chaotic games from the last round of the senior championship. We speak of a forward there like Aisling Maloney. I spoke about another forward last week in Katie Quirk from Cork, and I said with Mayo, we're going into that game that they would have to do their level best to mark her and to try and stop her. And then she gets a goal in each half, and Cork win by 3-8 to 110 and book their place into the quarterfinals. Strong performance against Cork, Claire. I know Mayo, we'll touch about it later as to what will happen now in the relegation zone, but they looked a lot stronger than the performance that they showed against Kerry in Tralee, and I think they can take a lot now from that going into that relegation playoff.
Well, definitely, I thought Mayo looked really sort of coherent, if that's the right way to describe it. Much improved, and yeah, like that was a tight game, and you know, Cork are glad to have come through it. The Katie Quirk factor, like one of her goals, well, both, but one of them in particular was just, you'd watch it over and over and over. But no, definitely, like I say, Diarmuid, Mayo are heading the right direction, and they'll be feeling confident in relegation, and so they should.
Like, when you look at any team and you want to start the game on a positive note, you just see Maria O'Callaghan getting the ball, she's going in for goal, you're thinking, what's going to happen here? Next minute, ball's in the back of the net, and you have a goal just after a couple of seconds. Like, how much does that lift a team?
Well, sure, it gives you that straight away. You've less to worry about, I suppose, because you have those 3 points in the board. And as for the opposition, like, you know, it's the one thing you think, right, that's definitely not going to happen. I mean, we're set up. We can't be badly set up. The ball's just been thrown in, but it happens so easily when you if you look back on a set of games, like, you know, those moves are pre-planned, I'm sure. And if we win the throw up, this happens, and in a matter of seconds, it can be in the back of the net, and there's not that much that the opposition can do about it. But definitely a lovely way to start the game, because you know what might happen, but for the team that gets it, you're never expecting to be in that position and have that cushion so soon.
And like, as I said, and as you said there, it was a very tight game. You know, it was 2-3 to 6 points at half time. Cork kicked on in the third quarter. They kept Mayo at arm's length. Then Cork gets the second goal. You're thinking, okay, you've got the other goal. You're going to kick on. Then Mayo get their own goal. Annie Goff puts it into the back of the net. And then you're watching it, and I think there was ultimate heartbreak for Mayo. We talk about the narrowest of margins in games. You know, they needed the goal. A draw would have sent Mayo through, and they were chasing it. And then you just see the ball goes in, Clodagh Keane gets it, and it's ruled out for a square ball. Like, from the psychological factor, when you come so close to getting those scores, I know from the defensive perspective from Cork, I think you'd be delighted going, okay, we can breathe a sigh of relief. We'll just get the ball up the field, maybe just slow the game down to a certain pace and kick on from there. But from the Mayo perspective, do you think that might have just knocked their confidence in those final few minutes that, you know, we came so close but yet so far?
Yeah, I think in them scenarios, I think it's just energy zapping, isn't it? You know, like you're tirelessly trying everything, you're giving everything to just kind of keep that I suppose, gap narrow and to get as close to, getting ahead as possible. And I think, especially at this level and in championship football, goal chances don't always come around that often. So I feel like there's a lot more weight and a lot more pressure on them. And then in that, I suppose, the whole scenario of that game, the timing of the game, it's like it's energizing to Cork and energy zapping to Mayo, and I think it's just deflating. It's hard to get that back up, but you'd just be telling yourself we're going to get it again, but the reality is, time's running out in them scenarios.
Momentum. I also think in ladies football, square ball doesn't actually happen that often. So when it does, you're like, what? So maybe that's just me, but it doesn't. So you're nearly going, oh, I forgot. That's the thing. Like, so it's so disappointing when a goal gets ruled out because it's not a massive, it's not a very regular occurrence in a game. I don't think so. When it does happen, then it's a real kicker.
It should be like the men's too. It's different to the men's one, isn't it? Too, that it's before the men's when it's kicked again. What? Like, why is our, Anyway, I know.
I think from a Cork perspective, they'll take it either way.
Absolutely. Square ball all day.
Yeah, square ball. Like, they were delighted. Laura O'Mahony gets a point to seal the game out. Cork are going into the quarterfinals, and Mayo, unfortunately, are going into the relegation playoffs. So I think Cork, we're happy to be leaving Castlebar with the win. Let's talk about Group 3. And I think the result, there was a lot of upsets in the land of Gaelic games this weekend. But I think the one in Group 3 was the one that not a lot of people expected. Kildare knocking last year's semi-finalists and the Ulster champions Armagh out of the competition, Armagh into the relegation playoffs. But Kildare, to give them their credit, they just looked sharp from start to finish. They gave it up to Armagh. They were full value for their win. I know Armagh missing a couple of key players. Obviously, Amy Mackin came back on in the final few minutes. Fantastic to see her back after her injury woes last year. But they're missing someone like Clodagh McCambridge. And I remember in Tullamore last year when they played Kerry in the semi-final, she had a nasty collision with Aisling O'Connell and ended up going off the field. And there was a crazy stat that in her time, I think it was over a couple of years, that was the first time she had been off the field for Armagh. They actually had to play without her. And in that time, Kerry got a goal at the other end. Like, Kerry really came back into the game when she wasn't on the fields. And now you've seen in the 2 games that they have to play without her, their defence, they still managed to, hold out a lot of pressure from Kildare, and even in that Meath game as well. But when you're missing someone, I know, Claire, being a defender yourself and having, when you're playing with 6 girls, if you're familiar with them and you have kind of that shape and that formula, that how to play with one another. If you take a piece out, it's very hard to kind of jumble the remaining pieces together or slot a new one in if it doesn't fit quite right.
Yeah, and I suppose what you definitely, as a defence and in terms of your structure, what we probably miss from standing watching a game or sitting watching a game on a screen is the communication that has to be involved in a well-structured defence. So I can't say, but possibly bar the fact that she's an unbelievable footballer, possibly your communication with the other players in defence is what might be missing when she's not on the field. That's a crazy statistic that you've just called out there, Jim. I didn't know that, but it probably is down to communication because it's so huge. And as I say, it's not so, you might hear the odd roar off a pitch if you're standing pitch side, but we probably don't see the kind of true value of good communicators on the football field. We know they're there and we know they have to be, but in terms of picking out individuals, it might not always be obvious. So that could be one of her big assets as a team player and why she's such a loss.
I actually played with Clodagh in Queens and actually against her last year. Unfortunately, she was marking me in the Ulster club with Clan Erne. But yeah, she is exactly that, Claire. Like, the way she organises defences, like even in that club scenario, is phenomenal. Like, even I love playing with her. Like, she's probably the one, like, and even watching her, you can see it. She's the one guarantee that she is not going to let any forward have an easy ball, and again, fantastic reader of the ball. Like, as in when they turn, she's faced up. She's never going to get turned. You're never going to get past her. Mm-hmm. She is such a phenomenal defender. Like, and I think that, to lose such a, especially usually full back, like such a main role is such a knock to a team. It's very hard to replace that. And like you said, when she's been there and she's barely missed any game time, you're not really going to have someone that has experience playing that position for so long too. So that's a massive loss for Armagh too, and it can just rock the boat that wee bit.
I suppose it goes without saying, that's why you give her the captaincy when you have someone like that that's such an inspirational leader. And like, I've spoken to players who've come up against her forwards, and they say like, she's one of the toughest markers you will face in the ladies game. Absolutely fantastic player. Now, saying that, Armagh, they still defended very well, and it was a very, very close first half. There were 6 points apiece at half time, and it was very much, tit for tat going into the second half until Leisha Lenihan puts the ball into the back of the net. And then Kildare, they start to get a bit of confidence. They go up to a 5-point lead, and then you have a goalkeeper like Mary Hulgren, like the save, just, you just see, you see Kelly Mallon, she's about to palm the ball and thinking, Armagh have a goal here. They're right back into it. And then you just see Mary getting onto the end of it and saving the ball on the line. Like, those moments must just be crucial for teams when you have, a goalkeeper to make a crucial save, or maybe it's a block on the line, or just those little clearances, like those little things from the mentality perspective for a team can certainly just give you the confidence to drive on when you might be under that cautious small bit.
Oh, for sure. And Mary Hulgren is such a shrewd operator in those goals. You kind of, she's always got that moment winning kind of, I suppose her mentality probably too, but her skill set, you always know it's there, and it's a real possibility that while she's in those goals, something magical could happen in there, and so it did on the weekend. But like you say, Diarmuid, like, it was a close game, and like, full credit to Kildare. Armagh didn't collapse by any means. Kildare were full value for that win, and I love being wrong. I love when I think, such and such team are going to win, and I'm wrong. Like, it's a great result for the sport. And as I say, Kildare were kind of quietly probably going about their business and had knocked it out of the park performance-wise until the weekend. And what a game to pick.
Absolutely. Like, that was a fantastic result. And I know, Joanne, you speak there about Clodagh's role in the team. Then you have someone like Laura McConville. Laura McConville is an absolutely fantastic player. Like, seeing her last year, I thought the Division 1 League final, she was just running rings around Kerry and Croke Park. She was phenomenal. And even in the game in Tullamore as well, I thought, she's absolutely fantastic player. And then she takes on the captaincy in Clodagh's absence, buries the ball into the back of the net, and suddenly you're thinking, Armagh coming back into it. Then Amy Mackin comes on, you're thinking, who better to bring on in the final few minutes than someone like Amy Mackin, who can take the scores. She gets the free, first appearance of the season, and then it's 1 point, thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? But from the defensive standpoint, Clare, when you watch them, Clare, they really did defend well, didn't they, Kildare, in those final few minutes, just to hold out Armagh, because that Armagh machine, when it gets going, they're absolutely phenomenal.
Oh yeah, and remain so composed. Like, I'm sure they had great belief that they could pull off that win, but at the same time, they were probably thinking, what's going on here? We're defending a lead against Armagh. So I thought they remained incredibly composed. And I suppose when you think about Kildare, they've been a very, very solid team the last few years. And obviously, coming up from intermediate and staying senior is in itself is a big achievement. But yeah, I thought composure was what stood out in those last few minutes, because like you say, you are looking at Armagh thinking, they have the players to finish this game on top. But yeah, Kildare weren't having any of that.
Yeah, and then they go up, they get their final score, and like the scenes after, like I suppose that's what you play for at the end of the day. Like, I don't think a lot of people gave Kildare a chance against Armagh, considering they were in the relegation spot last year, had to go all the way to the final game to try and ensure that they would be a senior team this year. And I know they have a change of management, and a couple of players have departed the panel and the stuff like that, but like, just it's those memories that you live for. And for a team like Kildare, they can rubber stamp their spot now in the quarter final, and they can say, look, we'll go down, we'll play who we're playing, and give a great account of ourselves because we're senior next year. And who knows, bounce of ball, they could be in a semi-final this year.
It's phenomenal. And I think even, I suppose, that underdog mentality, it's mad what it actually can fuel you to do. Like, I feel like sometimes you nearly you know, playing it a wee bit more to get a wee bit more out of your teammates and stuff, that, you know, it can, I suppose, get you to dig deep whenever you are in them tough situations. And they've a point to prove. Like, they obviously have the talent and they have the players, and I think that game will give them massive belief going into the quarterfinal, or massive belief even that they're well able to be in senior competition, like in senior championship. Like, so I'd say even for young girls coming through from Kildare, like, if they can stay up there for a few years, I'd say they're definitely a team to be watching out for.
So from that group, of course, Meath went in to the quarterfinal draw as the top seed, Kildare finishing second, and of course, as we mentioned there, Armagh into the relegation playoffs. That's 3 groups. Group 4, final group of the senior championship to discuss this week. It was all going to come down to the line between Waterford and Leitrim as to who would finish second in the group, or if Waterford could get a big win, they could, of course, leapfrog Dublin. Waterford did get the win in the end, 6-16 to 3-4 over Leitrim. And I had to say it, and I watched it. I know Claire will probably say, nah, with the way that the game went. But I had to say, you made Waterford work for it in the end. I know Waterford did need that massive score, but you never gave up. You battled until the very end, got your scores, some fantastic scores as well, I have to point out. But I think that's a performance that, I know you're going into relegation playoffs against Mayo, but I think you can take an awful lot from that performance after the heavier defeat to Dublin a week prior.
Yeah, like it definitely felt a bit more like us. And look, the scoreline, I suppose, isn't all that different, but at the same time, you know, we scored 3-4, and Waterford are going to be a force to be reckoned with in this senior championship, I believe. They're very, very powerful on the counter-attack in every way, really. And there's just some really, really standout players with a lot of pace, players with a lot of know-how kind of on the field, and great reading of the ball. So it didn't look all that different, like I say, on the scoreboard, but it definitely felt different. And look, this is our first year in senior in, like, as long as nearly since I started playing, I suppose. But there's a lot to be learned. Like, it's a different ball game in many ways, and the only way kind of through it is by gaining experience. So, like, we're going to approach relegation the same as we do every game, and we're going to go out and try and win it, and we hopefully will. For me, I'm in the twilight of my career, and I'd love to see Leitrim ladies remain senior, and I think we're capable of being there. And like we talked about other teams there that fought relegation last year, and now look at them. So, you know, it's not always a measure of where a team is at. And yeah, we look forward to that game against Mayo, and we'll give it everything we have. Like, a much better performance overall, I would say, but still a lot to learn.
I know we mentioned in the past Waterford's firepower and just how good they can be when they do get forward. You have the likes Karen McGrath gets their first goal after 16 minutes, and then you have Katie Murray getting one after, I think it was in the 22nd minute, and they were like 12 points up at that point. But look, to your credit, you fought back. You know, Laura O'Dowd gets you your goal, and it's 2-7 to 1-1 at half time, which I think when you look at a week prior, like, you were very much still in the fight at half time, and you probably went in going, you know, there's still a lot to play for in the second half.
Yeah, for sure. And as I say, looking at that scoreline, like, it was definitely not beyond the realms of possibility that you know, we could have drawn level or gone ahead. Like, it's not how it panned out. But I think overall it was a much more competitive game, let's call it, and probably just a bit better for the spectator as well, which is always nice.
Like, you have Lauren McGregor and Brie McMaw firepower in the second half, and Waterford just showed, I suppose, they went in at halftime going, right, lads, we need an improved performance if we want to top the group, and you were probably we're going to have an onslaught in the second half to deal with. And I thought it was a fantastic goal from Rachel McIntyre at the other end. I thought it was, and even, I know I sent you the clip as well. It just comes from, you know, Michelle takes the kick out, and you just work it, and it's just such a flowing move. It's just like, I think that's the way this Gaelic football should be played.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I think, you know, looking back on the game, obviously there's many different times where we didn't do what we were hoping to and didn't do what we had planned. But equally, there were definitely times, like you say, Diarmuid, where you're looking at it going, that's a senior football move. Like, you know, that's kind of how any team is looking to play. So yeah, like, there was definitely glimpses of what we're capable of throughout that game.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm sure, you know, the scoreboard really didn't reflect how well ye played. I know, but it's, as you said, it's all about learning experience. Like, I mean, for any team, as you said, how long since you last played senior, and you've been, fighting hard in the intermediate for years and in the league as well. And in your first 2 games as a senior team, you're facing Dublin and then you're facing Waterford, who have massively improved.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it was talk about a baptism of fire in the senior championship, but it really, and it is very different. Like, I've been playing a very, very long time, and have played in a lot of games against other counties, and yet for me, in as many games I've played, I'm thinking this feels really different. So, thinking of younger girls who have less experience, now maybe they're not carrying the weight of that, but there's so much to learn, as I say, and it's the same. It's ladies football, but it definitely just does feel very different. And as I say, like a lot of things, until you gain experience at that level or in a particular area, you are going to be up against it. But as long as you can kind of stay in the game, and the game in this case is senior championship, then you're always going to be in with a shot if you're improving year on year.
So that wrapped up all of the results from the weekend. It was depending on what time the final whistle did blow in a couple of games, but that was the result from Group 4. That set Waterford in a second place, and the Dubs, of course, going in as the number 1 seed from Group 4. All the balls went into the pot, and then we got our draw for the knockout stage of the senior championship. So now it's going to get even spicier than what we've seen in the group stage games. So here is how the bracket now looks. We'll go through the quarterfinals. So Kerry will take on Kildare, Dublin will take on Cork, Meath against Tipperary, and Galway against Waterford. The winners of Kerry and Kildare will then face the winners of Meath and Tipperary, and the winners of Dublin and Cork will face the winners of Galway and Waterford. We could have a repeat of Galway and Dublin. Again, I'm sure the Dubs would love a rattle off Galway like last year if they win their respective ties. And then in the other bracket, Meath could face Kerry for the 3rd year in a row, but this time in a semi-final, depending on how those games transpire. Those semi-finals are currently scheduled as a potential double-header at Glenisco O'Connor Park in Tullamore and Offaly on Saturday, the 19th of July, and those games are scheduled to take place at 5:15 and 7:30 throw-in in those respective games. Kerry will be playing in Austin Stack Park against Kildare. Galway are playing in Tuam against Waterford. Mayo will host Leitrim. We'll talk about relegation qualifiers in a second. Dublin against Cork. Venue just to be confirmed on that one, but that's going to be in 1:15 on the Saturday. And then Meath and Tipperary, venue to be confirmed there as well. Of those games, there's definitely a few spicy affairs in those quarterfinals. I think the standout tie, would I be right in saying, might be Dublin and Cork?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the fact one of them teams is going to be out is insane too, isn't it? At this stage, like, but I think even watching Cork against Kerry last week, wasn't it? That they were phenomenal too. Like, they were really dangerous, especially that first half performance. Like, I'm sure they're wanting to replicate that for obviously the 60 minutes of game time. But like you said, Dublin will be looking to get back and redeem themselves from last year as well. So that's going to be a very, very interesting game.
We'll have plenty to unpack when we're looking ahead to these quarterfinal ties. At the same time, we also have our relegation semi-finals. Mayo taking on Leitrim, 2:00 on the 5th of July in Kilcoyne Park. And then the other game is between Donegal and Armagh. It is scheduled for Saturday, but as we record this episode, just waiting for a time and a venue just to be confirmed for that game. But like we just said, with those quarterfinals, like those 2 semi-final playoffs, like you have a repeat of Donegal against Armagh. That's going to be a helter-skelter game, and it's another provincial affair. Then, Claire, when you look at your meeting with Mayo.
Yeah, it's interesting that that's how it's played out, is that it's more provincial derbies. And I think, obviously Armagh, I think it's fair to say, were a surprise package in the relegation draw. But Donegal, probably the fact that they would have played each other over the years so much, probably won't fear Armagh. And Donegal have played in relegation before and stayed senior. So that will definitely be an interesting one. And then as for us, look, like I said, we'll approach that game like any other. We don't have a whole lot of history with Mayo at senior level. You know, we're provincial neighbours, let's call it, but we don't have a whole lot of experience of playing them. So it mightn't feel like as much of a local derby maybe as if we'd been senior for longer. But yeah, they'll be they'll be interesting games because everyone's fighting to stay senior, which is a little bit different to how people going into a quarter final probably feel. It's a different vibe, let's say.
So winners of those obviously retain their senior status for next year. Losers go into a relegation playoff final on Saturday, July 12th, and then winner of that stays up. Loser, unfortunately, gets relegated down into the Intermediate Championship for 2026. Along with looking at all of the ties, we have to look at the sharpshooters that have been performing the best so far in the Senior Championship this year. Dublin's Hannah Tyrrell topping the top scoring charts with 4 goals and 12 points in her 2 outings, and just behind teammate is Kate Sullivan with 3 goals and 5 points, 14 tallied. Then you have Kerry's Shifra O'Shea with 2 goals and 8 points, followed closely by Brie McMaw of Waterford with a goal and 10 points. Plenty of top scorers that have set the scene alight so far this season for their respective counties. This week's guest, however, is not a forward. It's a defender, but it is a defender that didn't see game time last season as her county went on to win the All-Ireland Senior Championship, ending over 30 years of hurt in the pursuit of All-Ireland glory. It was Emma Costello. Emma had a much different reason for taking some time away last year. I caught up with her this week just to find out just how the last 12 months have been going for her. Now, delighted to be joined by Kerry defender Emma Costello this week on our Ladies Gaelic Football podcast. Emma, thanks for joining us this week.
No problem, Diarmuid. Thanks for having me.
I suppose we've seen last year you were not part of the Kerry panel, of course, a Kerry team that did go on to lift the All-Ireland. They're defending the title this year. I suppose from your own point of view, it was a different 12 months than what you normally would have done in terms of the GA scene.
Yeah, very different. I spent it in the stands cheering them on the whole way. I obviously had a little baby girl in September just gone, so it was definitely a different 12 months, but it was just amazing to be able to follow the girls all the way through. And I was, myself and Louise Galvin were in the stands that day. I was 37 weeks pregnant. I think she was 30, maybe 29. So the two of us waddling around the place, but bawling, crying, probably all the hormones making us cry. But it was fabulous just to be able to go and support the girls, knowing the 2 years previous how close we had got. Just to see them finally do it was just incredible. And still to this day, thinking about the day was just the pride we had for them, and just knowing, because we had just come out of it, knowing what it takes and knowing the extra bit they were able to do this last year and get over the line was fantastic.
I'm sure there was a few games last year that definitely didn't do ye any the favours in terms of the stress and the heart rate going through the roof. I mean, that game up in Tullamore against Armagh could have gone absolutely either way. There was a couple of...
totally, yeah. And it was just a credit to the girls that they were able to finish it out, but it was tough. But I think the All-Ireland final was much easier probably to watch. I think they performed so well from the minute the ball was thrown in. It wasn't a stressful one really to watch, really, which was great. It was great to be able to go up and just kind of enjoy it, and for them to, you don't get days like that in Croke Park too often where you can actually enjoy the day, going up at half time, and obviously they took nothing for granted, but to be able to just see the score ticking over all the time and not chasing a game, and just we had a similar game against Galway in the league final the year before where we were we won probably fairly comprehensively. So you just don't get those days. So you have to really, really enjoy them when they come.
Because I know even in the run up to it, there was a lot more, you talk about the 22 final defeat, the 23 final defeat. And I think everyone was saying, this is the year. This has to be the year that Kerry get over the line. I think emotions were very, very high to try and get that performance. And then, you talk about yourself and Louise inside in the stands. I'd say from a Kerry perspective, there wasn't a dry eye in Croke Park that day when they did get over the line. I know by half time, I think we were kind of saying, it looked like they were going to do it, but Galway could easily come back. And then the game goes on, and then you're thinking, okay, Then, of course, we have the moment where they take off Louise. They
Yeah.
give her the standing ovation. I'd say
She
that
deserves,
sent everyone else
Yeah.
into
Whoever
emotion.
wasn't crying was crying at that
Yeah,
stage.
exactly. Because everyone, even if you're not a Kerry fan, I think everyone
Yeah,
was
even the
delighted
neutral.
for Louise at the end of the day. But from, we'll say, your perspective, the likes of yourself and Louise Galvin, who had been playing with Kerry for years, from your perspective, just how lifting was that to finally see Kerry get over that line?
Oh, it was just fabulous. It's just, you just know what it takes. And like, you think even the 2 years previous, you think we had every possible thing organised and every possible stone unturned, that we had everything organised as best we could. And we still didn't get over the line. And even when you were at the peak, you're going to chase it again the following year. That's why everyone keeps going back to play. You're constantly chasing that goal, and it could easily crumble each year. That, okay, another defeat. Like, maybe after me, there was, okay, we hadn't been back there in so long, did it get to us? But then for Dublin, we really felt we had everything. I suppose play by play, we had the team so well organised, and we really thought that was going to be the one. And then they came out and blitzed us in the first 10 minutes, and we just didn't see it coming. We got absolutely blindsided, and they had us totally well marked, and that was it. That was the day, and it was just another year gone again. But at the same time, as Kerry footballers, or as any footballer, that's why we go to play football, is to reach those goals and to come out again the following season to try again. Like, if everyone quit, what would you have each year? Like, you want to keep going, to keep striving, knowing how close you're getting there. And I think by the third one, then everything was, I think the emotion was nearly actually taken out of it by the girls and by the team, the lads. They approached it in a very different way, because even though we were always onto the team, and things were approached differently, because I think it had to be, because the other 2 years it hadn't worked. So you don't want to tweak too much, but you had to tweak something. So definitely, I think they've removed a lot of emotion and a lot of the, I suppose, gearing up to it. And we had run through all the sequence of events, and you knew how the day is going to go. And not that you get used to playing Croke Park, but you get used to the day and the build up and the tickets and the jerseys and all these things that are just sidelined to it. So all they focused on was one more game constantly. That's all the girls kept saying each. And you say that before, but they believed it, I think. And that was the difference. It was the real belief from 1 to 35 that they were going to win it. And there was no doubt in my mind that day they were going to win. But even going up, and I know it's easy saying that in hindsight, but just going from the talking to them and the mood in the camp, there was just no denying they were going to win it last year. They were incredible.
No, I mean, we were in Stark Park for their media night just before the Ireland final, and we got to watch the training session. It was I say it was an AVB game, it was the 15 against 15.
Yeah.
And like, they were knocking shades out of each other. Like, it was, I want to start.
They're worse than any game sometimes.
Yeah. Like, for whatever about playing challenge games, like that training session was as physical and as motivational as you're going to see anywhere else. But you mentioned it there, you come back and you want that goal. Obviously, you're back playing this year, back in the Kerry jersey once again.
Yeah.
You did take a leave of absence before. I know you had made your debut for Kerry back, I believe, in about 2010.
I think 2010, yeah.
Yeah. And then you
were in
yeah, it does seem like a long time ago.
Yeah.
And then you go all the way to 2017. That was your last year, of course. You were working in Dublin at the time, living there, and the commuting down to Kerry to play it just got a bit too much. You decided to take a break. Flash forward a few years later, it's 2022, opening game of the league, Kerry taking on Tipperary and Killarney, and suddenly we see Emma Costello on the match programme. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, Costello isn't your surname, it's Sherwood.
Yeah.
Costello is the married name. So everyone knows you as Emma Sherwood. During your previous time with Kerry, it was Emma Sherwood, and they were saying, who's this new defender that Kerry are after bringing in? Okay, we'll have to see just who this person is. And all of a sudden, a few minutes into the game, we're like, that's Emma Sherwood. We're like going back, and there's stories coming out of WhatsApp groups that the players didn't even know who this person was that was after coming back. But I suppose, how did that come to fruition that you decided? I know you'd moved back around COVID time or just before COVID time from Dublin. So how did it happen that they managed to get you to come back into the intercounty scene?
Yeah, I suppose it was the end of 2019 we moved back down to Kerry. So we actually timed it very well. We were down just before COVID hit. And obviously 2020 kind of went by in a flash. So by the end of 21, I suppose I was back playing with Fireys. We hadn't had a team in a while at that level. And we were just kind of went on a good run. We ended up winning the Junior B, then we ended up winning the Junior A. And so we were having a good kind of a stint with Fireys, and that's my club team. And I suppose the lads had heard I was back playing football or something, and I don't know, or the girls, because even the previous year I kind of said no, I still wasn't ready, and I was getting married, and there was still a lot going on. You know, my two brothers we actually had three. I have two brothers, and we had 3 COVID weddings, so we had 3 family weddings in 10 months. So we had a very busy 2021. So even at that, I wasn't kind of fully ready to commit to it. So then when the call came in 22 to join, I couldn't say no again once. And even I remember it was Dara phoned me, and he was like, the first question was, right, what you think? And I goes, well, it's not a no. And he just was floored. He just didn't expect it straight away. So I think you know yourself, if it's not a no straight away, then it's a yes. And it was the same this time when I was contacted by Mark. Once it's not a no, there's something's eating at the back of your head. But anyway, once I got back in 22, sure, it was like I'd never left in a way. I was just missed everything. I missed the crack of it, missed the team, the girls. Obviously, it was a huge change in players and personnel. And obviously, I hadn't been under Darren and Declan before, but it was such an unbelievable group. Not saying that groups before weren't great, but this particular group that's there now at the moment is just so well knit, like from 1 to 35, 36, like young to old. Like I'm obviously at the other end, but some of the young girls, they're incredible. Like how the skill level they have now from a young age, the dedication, the commitment they have to it is just frightening. Like they're dying. Like we had 3 girls doing our leaving cert. They were training like the following day or the night they finished, or do you know what I mean? It was unbelievable, just the dedication they have. But I suppose just the run, when you get on a good run then, and when you get, like, we obviously won Division 2, and then we got straight, like we got obviously to the All-Ireland against Meath, and we fell short, but there was a lot of questions we knew ourselves that needed answering. So we built it up and went again. Like I said, you just get up and you go again. But then after the Dublin game in 23, I just knew that was my time, and we kind of, myself and my husband obviously had been talking that we wanted to start a family, and it just felt right. You know, you just know that, okay, this was, but I still, even on that day, and I probably don't remember, but that day I remember saying to a few of the girls that I knew next year they were going to do it. It's easy, like I say, saying things back now, but I knew that they had it. I even said it to them on the pitch, like, next year it'll happen. And as much as it's hard to step away, it just felt right for me personally. Do you know what I mean? It was, I'm not getting any younger. So it was a difficult decision, but it was one that I came to quick enough at the same time.
When you look at that time, you speaking there about getting the phone call from Dara, and I suppose coming into the panel after taking a few years out, what were the differences this time around when you got the phone call off of Mark to say, will you come back in?
I suppose this time it was the middle of the season, which I had never done before, and I'd be very much a person, I really want to go from the start, and I want to give everything, and I don't like to do anything by halves, or don't want to be coming and going, or not being able to fully commit. But from the very beginning, Mark was very understanding, and he was, like, obviously knew our situation, and like I wouldn't be able to do it without my husband Brian. He's just unbelievable how he supports me through it, and both our families, we're lucky that we're in Tralee. Brian's family is here, and my family are in Farnforth, so we're very lucky that way, that we have the support behind us. But I suppose I had been, like I say, playing the few games with Fireys, but probably not enough. So I kind of didn't know how. I knew I was going to be off the pace, and I did find that hard. So I wanted to I took a few days again to kind of think about it, because I didn't want to go in and just, like, if I was going to do it, I wanted to be able to give myself the best chance of playing, not just, and that probably was a bit selfish too, but if it was going to take a lot of time, I wanted it to give myself the chance of playing. I didn't want to just be going 2 or 3 nights a week and not being able to commit to 5 or whatever we're doing. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to be able to fully do it. But thankfully I've been able to up to now, and I suppose it was a shorter stint. It was because I only came in there literally the day after the league final. Was the day Mark rang me. He was straight into it. Obviously with Kaylee leaving, that was a big part of it. So there was a void there. Like there's no one going to fill Kaylee's shoes, but someone had to try, I suppose.
Because Kaylee is absolutely fantastic. I
Oh
think
yeah,
she was
hero.
definitely one of the players I had put forward for Player of the Year last year. I thought she was absolutely incredible. I think
she's
she was.
outstanding. Yeah.
I think she was very disappointed after the 23 final, just with picking up an injury during the game and just not getting over that line. But she is an absolutely
she's outstanding, and she's just
player.
An unbelievable team player, just an unbelievable teammate, and it gives everything all the time. And that's why even when she was going to Australia, she wanted to finish out the league. Like, Kerry is still her number one. But she, like I say, it's not an easy hole to fill. It's not their big shoes. She had an outstanding year last year, and again this year she was playing out unbelievable football. So like, even the minute she heard, she texted me straight away. She's like, I can't believe you're back. And I'm just gone. Like, she was nearly angry with me. But she's a hero, yeah.
Yeah, she is just absolutely fantastic, and she's going to absolutely thrive down in
Australia. She'll be unbelievable. And she's always had great interest in the game and always watches the AFLW. So it'll be class to see her watch and go thrive over there now. She's loving it, yeah.
You had the baby in September of last year, and then a few months go by, you're back on the field with Fireys. You're playing in the Donald Curtain, which is a local competition in Kerry. Very fiercely competitive, I may add. That competition every year seems to throw up some
it's great. It's a great competition.
And results as well. Obviously, you're battling away with Fireys. Then back in May, you're named on the bench in the second round of Munster against Waterford. Like, to go from your club a couple of months after having the baby, then to go straight into the inter-county scene, I suppose, how did you find juggling, obviously having to look after the baby and manage your inter-county career as well, but also that level of going straight back, nearly a bit of a baptism of fire, going from playing with your club a few months after, then going straight back into a competitive inter-county game?
Yeah, I suppose it was... it's definitely logistically a lot different. There's a lot more managing and organising things. But as I mentioned, it's the support of my husband and my family that has made it possible, really, because I'm also back to work. So it's the trying to organise the week starts on a Sunday and we figure out where we're going, because Brian trains the Mitchell's minors here in Tralee as well. So like, he's obviously doing that too. So we're trying to balance the nights. But we're lucky Molly is a brilliant baby. She's a great sleeper, and that does help too. But I suppose when I went back to Fireys, we were only doing a night or two a week and a bit of gym. So I was able to tip away at that. And I was actually doing a few classes in Wayne. Our SNC has a gym here in town, and I was actually doing those classes too. So there was a small base there, not a huge lab, but there was a base. And I had kept myself ticking over a bit with swimming and things when I was pregnant. Like, obviously nothing similar, but I wasn't doing just little bits here and there. So once Fiery started, I suppose the competitive side of me just comes out straight away, and I can't, as I say, do anything if I have. So once I start, I'm playing and I'll commit to it. So Fiery started going okay, and we were training away and playing our few games. And like, the Donald Curtain is great in that it's every Sunday, and the way the league works is, unless Kerry players haven't played the day before for like a certain amount of time, then there's Kerry players don't play. So it means there's great scope for all the other players in the county to be playing, and you get loads of match time and you get great, very competitive games. So I suppose it did help that I had a lot of football played in a short space of time. Like, we had, I think, 5 games in 5 weeks or something. And then that's when the call came. So I didn't say no straight away. So I think that was my answer. I was like, if it had come back in November, it would have been a no, obviously, but it just, the timing, like everything in life, it was about timing, and it just happened to feel right at that time, knowing it'd be best case scenario 4 months. Do you know, it's a lot different in November thinking 9 months. Do you know what I mean? So it was all about the timing, really. So I was honoured to be able to go again. I really thought that I was finished. So it was, like I say, once you get asked, it's very hard to say no.
I'm sure.
Give yourself a chance to wear the jersey again. It's an honor every time. So it's just I'm just delighted to be back, and they're, like I say, a great bunch and just an honor.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's a good few girls in that squad that make absolutely fantastic babysitters, or maybe bad influences. But sure.
I know, and Molly's been at most of the games. That she didn't make it to Waterford now, but she's been at every other game, I think, which is great.
And I know we've seen it in the past. I know when Julianne Russell brought her baby Rosie into the Ireland squad, how have the girls, will say, maybe reacted the same just to having, your own baby brought in, that it just kind of, lifts the squad and gives them just that little bit of, downtime when you're a competitive player for 60 minutes, then you have that little bit of downtime after when you can bring her into the dressing room.
Totally. I think it changes your outlook a little bit. Like, obviously your perspective now is a bit different. Like, as much as you want to win, you can go home to a little smiley face now. And it is a little bit different. You're still have that drive, but I suppose now I'm doing it to get her to see me. Like, there's not too many people who can say that their daughter can see them playing inter-county football, I suppose. So it's like, I don't take it for granted at all. And it's just amazing to be able to bring her out on the pitch. Like, the last day now, again, I was able to bring her out in Aztec Park, and she was there the day of the Munster final. Like, it's just so special to be able to do that. And sure, like you say, we've 35 babysitters there ready and waiting.
Absolutely. But there's plenty of smiling faces in the panel at the moment. I suppose since you've come back in, it's been positive signs ahead, getting those results. I know maybe disappointed with that draw against Tipperary, but look, you were already guaranteed the spot in the final that day. Very tough game against Waterford down in Mallow. Prepared you for going into the All-Ireland series. Then you've had tough game against Mayo down in Tralee, very tough game against Cork, but a fantastic second half resurgence against them. We talk about the young players there, the likes of Rachel, Danielle and Schaefer as a front three. I don't think you're going to find a front three better in Ireland at the moment. It's been very positive, and now you're looking forward to an All-Ireland quarter-final in Tralee against Kildare. Kildare have definitely raised eyebrows getting over Armagh and knocking them into the relegation zone. So what are you going to be expecting now to take on a team like Kildare in Tralee in the next week or so?
Yeah, we actually just watched the game the day before yesterday, the Armagh game. Like, they really put it up to Armagh. They have some excellent players all over the pitch. Like, they're really fit, really good kickers, really physically strong. So we're going to have our work cut out massively. We have a lot of homework to do for the next 2 weeks now to get ourselves prepared. Like, we saw against Cork, if we let that happen again, we'll be gone. Like, we know that now. We left it too late, or if we leave it too late, it'll be gone. Like, we just know we can't. The second half, we can't be waiting that long this time. I suppose we had, like you say, great preparation in Munster. We had a few really tough games in quick succession there, and like, there's nothing like that game preparation. But at the same time, we've had a nice 2 weeks now to actually put in another block of training. And, sometimes you need that too, just to get reset again and to organize things, get this small, like, obviously you're not changing anything massively, but you're doing small tweaks, and we had a few knocks. So getting all those people back on the pitch and getting everybody, all the bodies right. And you just, like, we really need to concentrate on ourselves. As much as we look at it, Kildare, it's more about ourselves, and we're controlling what we can control ourselves. And I suppose small things, like I say, getting the bodies right. And we obviously look at different clips from Kildare in the Armagh game, and like, they really, like I say, put it up to Armagh, and they're very transition very well, so stuff like that. So we'll be working on different drills like that now for the next week or two, and it'll just be small things, like I said, that need tweaking, but we're really looking forward to it. There's nothing like 2 years ago we had Mead inside in Aztec Park as well, and it was just unbelievable, the atmosphere. Last year the girls had Mead again, and we were at that game too. Like, it's just going into Aztec Park on a Saturday night. There's nothing like it. It's one of my favorite places to play football. It feels like the crowd are just on top of you, and we just urge that we'll get a huge crowd there again Saturday night, or Saturday week, obviously, that we'll get a huge crowd in and just really go for it. And a home quarter final, you can't take it for granted. Like, we worked hard in Munster to get that and to get our seeding. And then obviously we had the two good games Mayo was a difficult one, but we performed well against Cork then once we got going. So we earned our quarterfinal spot at home, so we need to use it now. And like I say, it's not an easy one, so we'll just have to start from the throw-in this time, not the second half.
No, but I remember those last two quarterfinals against Meath and Tray, like the atmosphere. I know the one that you played in was an absolute deluge of rain. And then
it was like a hurricane.
Yeah. We had fantastic weather. It was a lovely night, but on both occasions, the Kerry crowd came out in their numbers.
It was unbelievable. Yeah.
A 7:30 throw-in against Kildare. And sure, the Kildare fans, they could even go up to Dublin Airport and get the flight down to Fermanagh 4. They'll see the Fire East pitch when they land, depending on the way the plane goes in. They could stop in Sherwood's there for a drink just before the games to get themselves ready and head in for Tralee. But Emma, thanks very much for joining us on the podcast this week. And we wish you and Kerry all the best of luck in defending the All-Ireland this year.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me.
So that, of course, was Emma Costello of Kerry, just telling us about the interesting 12 months that she had, of course, being away from Kerry and becoming a mother for the first time as well, and now being back in the Kerry fold. Let's take a look at intermediate. We didn't have intermediate games the last weekend, should I say, but we have plenty of exciting ties to be played now over the next few days. Of course, we have quarter-final action down for decision in the Intermediate Championship, and it is going to be an exciting weekend. Taking a look at our bracket, of course, we have Laois against Wexford, we have Tyrone against Fermanagh, we have Clare against Monaghan, and we have Cavan against Westmeath, and all those games scheduled to take place at 2:00 this coming Sunday. It's going to be definitely a helter-skelter. Laois hosting Wexford in Port Laois. Of course, Tyrone taking on Fermanagh in Kildress. You have Clare taking on Monaghan down in Quilty. And of course, the final quarter-final is Cavan hosting Westmeath in Kingspan Breffni Park. Lot to be, I suppose, dissected from those quarterfinals. We'll start with Laois and Wexford. It's a repeat of the Leinster Intermediate final from May. They met in Division 3 of the league. Wexford have won on both occasions. They have finished second in the group. We spoke heavily about Wexford last week, that they were always going to be a tough team, whether they finished top of the group, whether they finished second. They were always going to be strong no matter where they ended up. Of those two teams, we think with Wexford, with the history, that they might feel a bit more confident despite Laois having home advantage?
I have the fear of saying anything now, honestly, after the Kildare Armagh game, but and look at, like, home advantage can make a difference, and obviously playing Laois, like, they were impressive, and even after the game you got the sense of like a real belief and a real, like, that they were striving towards something. Like they all seem to be kind of on the same wavelength and like really, I suppose, celebrated that win, and they probably took a lot of confidence from them 2 games and topping the group, So again, I definitely think it'll be a good game. But like you said, that experience from Wexford, they've been there a while. Like they probably are been knocking on that door for a while as well. Like that they probably are looking like this is the year to kind of push on and do something with that. But again, anything can happen. I do think it's going to be a really interesting weekend.
I know they're well used to each other this year, but before they faced each other in a Leinster final and in the league, their last meeting was in 2022 in headquarters in the All-Ireland final, Laois getting over the line against Wexford that day. Wexford have had a lot of hurt over the years. I know, Claire, you know it all too well from last year in Parnell. Do you think that with all the years of hurt behind them, that's just going to add more fuel to the fire, that Wexford try and get over the line on Sunday, book their place into a semi-final, and try and go one step further than their defeatee guys last year in Parnell and get back to headquarters?
Oh yeah, of course that'll be kind of on their minds. I personally cannot wait. You're coming at it or looking at it from a different lens, Rad. I can't wait for these games because, other years you're thinking, doesn't matter about other results, care about your own game, focus on your own game. So this weekend I can actually just look at them all and go, I want to know about all these games. So it's brilliant. I really can't wait for all the games. But your question was about Laois and Wexford. Yeah, I don't know. Like Laois are, I would say, not knowing much about Laois or their players, but like I would imagine they consider themselves as more of a senior team. So they'll be very keen to get back out of intermediate. obviously Wexford would be looking to do the same, but I don't know. I think they both have, anyone in a quarter-final has so much to play for, but I don't think either of them will consider themselves in bonus territory. Like they will both be going to win that game. So, no, I don't think anyone's thinking, oh, it's nice to be here. They both have a goal in mind, and that would be to be playing in Croke Park in the intermediate final. So I think it'll be a close call, and they have the experience now of playing each other this season a couple of times, and that can go either way, I suppose, but they're going to know each other pretty well already.
Both teams have season campaigners. Looking at Laois, Dave Mo and Erne, absolutely phenomenal players, given years of service to Laois. Then you have Emma Lawler, who's absolutely flying it in front of the post this year. You look at Wexford, Chloe Fox, give her a sniff of the post and she'll punish you, and she can, if you need the scores, she's going to be the player that is going to get them for Wexford. Like, it is very much a toss of a coin type of a game. Like, both teams, I suppose both teams are going into this game going, you've everything to win and you've everything to lose at the same point, because for one of these two teams, Sunday is going to be the end of the journey.
Yeah, and it's a long road back, I think, and like you said, Claire, like, Laois just coming straight back down. Like, for any team that does that, like, you're just mad to get back up. I think obviously you can probably hit that wee bit of belief and confidence within the team that, geez, maybe we are an intermediate team, when you are getting relegated. But I do think like that just even playing against them, that they were gunning for something this year, and obviously that was one game, but they do seem genuinely like they're gelling really well together, like, and again, some fantastic players, like you said, Diarmuid, like, and they were a hard stop, but yeah, because they've met so often, it will be an interesting encounter now to see, and it's gonna be interesting, guys.
Another one, Clare against Monaghan. This is another game that could absolutely go down to the wire. When they met in Division 2 of the league earlier in the season, I think Clare might have been going through a little bit of a transition with, I suppose, a lot of players leaving the panel before Christmas and a couple of different things that just didn't go their own way. And then Monaghan win 4-11 to 1-9 in Doonbeg. Now they're going down to Quilty. Clare have won their last two games. They're looking strong. Monaghan will be looking to pick themselves up from that defeat to Wicklow. Clare again, they're playing Ulster opposition. They lost to Tyrone in this stage of the competition last year. Do you think that might be on their heads a small bit?
Maybe, yeah. I think Clare have probably, I don't know what you'd call it, underachieved in the last couple of years. Kind of, they've been, we played them a couple of seasons ago when they were kind of involved in the Connacht Championship, and they were such a slick outfit. Like, you couldn't but be impressed. So I've been, I suppose, surprised that they haven't gone all the way in intermediate in the last couple of seasons. They get home advantage, which, like we said, can kind of go either way. It will be, whatever way Monaghan go about it, it's a journey. But Monaghan have surprised us this season so far, and I wouldn't put it past them to do the same again. The defeat against Wicklow, I suppose, will be disappointing, but it was a point and it didn't necessarily affect their season, so mightn't really play much of a part, I don't think.
Looking at Monaghan, Joanne, from the Ulster perspective, like, Ava Sherry has been absolutely fantastic in front of the post this year. They have the Garlands. They've just, in 1 to 15, they're very, very strong. They are a tough Ulster team. They play a good brand of football, and I'm sure after their defeat in Clonus last year, they won't want to go down to Clare this year, knowing that they've put themselves in the strong foot this year in the Intermediate Championship, but they don't want this to end on Sunday. No,
definitely not. And they've introduced a few girls back into the panel too. Like, so I think they're definitely gunning for it. And like you said, they do play a really, really good style of football. And I think even from the club perspective in Monaghan, it's so competitive. Even with Emmyvale, they're like, again, I'm currently living on the Monaghan border, and the competitiveness between clubs here is mad. Probably maybe that we don't have that in Fermanagh just quite as much. So to see a lot of them girls come back out to county, and they have had, I suppose, them kind of transition years, like, when them older players like the Courtneys and all do drop off, it does take a while to regroup and for new leaders to breathe through. So I think that's definitely kind of coming to the forefront now, that they are really gunning for this and really are kind of putting their foot forward to be like, we can get back up to senior here. And like Claire said, like, yes, the loss of Wicklow might have probably come as maybe a shock, but like we said, like Wicklow had a lot more to play for as well. Like, I don't think that will play in their minds too much. If they can get over the travel and do their homework right, I reckon it'll definitely be a tighter game than expected, maybe.
Staying with Ulster and staying with yourself brings us to another quarterfinal tie. Tyrone against your own Fermanagh. Of course, you got out against Roscommon, got the job done, booked yourselves now into this quarterfinal against Tyrone. A repeat from your tie in Ulster. You lost by 3 points, 4-11 to 3-11. Very tight game. I'm sure you've learned a lot from that and can take the backbone from this intermediate campaign and use that now as a bit of a learning going into Sunday Slash.
Like 100%, like, you know, you can't not but learn as you go on, like the more games you play, like, you know, and try and work on your systems of play and stuff. So we've definitely learned a lot from that game, and probably, if anything, even though we lost, I think the hurt after that game, like we have regrouped and we've realised that we were well able of winning that game. And again, not to be one of them nearly teams, like, you know, you hate being put in that kind of category, but, you know, it was ours for the winning that day. And I think we probably have that wee bit of hurt to use, but like, not that you need any motivation in All-Ireland quarter realistically, but again, Tyrone is a fantastic team as well, and even playing with a lot of the girls from college football and even in Melbourne, like Niamh O'Neill, Carmen Cross and even McHugh, like some fantastic athletes and players as well, that we are going to have to, you know, be on our best game to play against them too. So I definitely think it'll be a very, very good game. So yeah, again, anything can happen.
Then you have the likes of Sorka Gormley, Aoife Horace, like they've got fantastic players that can, you know, go through your defence. Fermanagh's defence, I seen it last year. You're very, very strong in defence and in that transition as well. Have some top quality forwards. I know we've spoken arm's length about Emer Smith and how good Emer is. Like, I think it could just, like, it is very hard to call either of these quarterfinal ties this weekend, but, you know, your game against Tyrone, like, it's definitely a 50-50. I think a lot of people, when it came to 12 months ago, had Clare tipped heavily against Tyrone down in Ennis. So I wonder now what way Tyrone might approach this game, but it's going to be a very, very close game. We've another Ulster team in the other quarterfinal. That's Cavan against Westmeath. The first time in 2025 that these two will meet. They were in the group stage last year. Westmeath managed to get over the line there. They also played them in the league. First game now in Cavan since 2023. So Cavan have home advantage now, as opposed to having lost a couple of games to Westmeath. I know they did get over the line in the league earlier on this year. Very, very close game. Another strong Ulster team, Joanne. And when you have Aisling Gilsinan, who's been in fantastic form this year in front of the post, Aisling Sheridan, fantastic player. And that's only naming two of their players. They have a lot more top quality players all over their panel. Like, they're going to be a very, very tough team to beat this weekend.
Yeah, like even watching some of their games through Ulster and stuff, like they definitely have a fantastic team. And again, a team that, like, we played them last year and they've a lot of girls back, and they look like they're, you know, they're ready to give it a real good crack this year. And I think you can see that, like you said, like fantastic forwards. And I think even against the, you know, the probably at the hurt from the Ulster not making the Ulster final, and then also the hurt from not I suppose losing to Monaghan, which was probably a bit of a shock, but a really good time of year to have that loss. And I think that can really drive a team on to not let that happen again too. So I reckon it'll be a very good game this weekend as well. But I do reckon there'll be a team to reckon with this All-Ireland campaign.
As I know, Claire, you've mentioned about Westmeath and how strong they are. And I think a lot of people thought that Tyrone game, just with the way that Tyrone just blew them out of the water, like they were very, very strong that day. And I think, you know, trying to pick yourselves up from a defeat like that, but they're still a very strong team. And regardless of having to make the trip up to Cavan this weekend, they're still going to be going out and just trying their level best now to get this result.
Oh, for sure. And I think as home advantage goes, Cavan, Westmeath, depending, it's not a huge distance, and Westmeath will probably feel like they owe themselves and each other kind of a performance. I mean, on any given day you can go out and lose or win a game, but as long as you can kind of leave and say, well, we did most of what we came here to do, and the result didn't go our way, they're due a big performance. I know I really talked them up podcast one and kind of had it very wrong then, but it could have been an off day. Let's see this weekend, but that should, in my mind, be a really, really close game, and particularly maybe because Westmeath will just feel like that result against Tyrone is not them, and our Tyrone that good, were Westmeath that poor. We'll kind of see that more this weekend against Cavan. Cavan were moving well back in January. We played them in a challenge, and kind of like what you said about Laois, Joanne, they felt full of intent that day back in January, and just really well put together and play really well together, and already had a lot of kind of moves put together even at that stage of the season. So they are a dangerous team for anyone to go up against. But as I say, I think Westmeath probably will feel like they're due a big performance and are capable of a big performance.
Certainly from their perspective, it is a weekend that they will have to deliver a big performance. Otherwise, that's the end of the journey. And so is the cruel and harsh realities of sport. It's 60 minutes can determine the rest of your season. You're into an All-Ireland semi-final, or you're going back to the drawing board looking ahead for 2026. For 4 other teams this weekend, it will be a lot different. We're looking at relegation, and we're going to be talking about the intermediate relegation playoffs that are going to take place this weekend. Down are against Offaly on Saturday, 2:00 in Abbottstown. And then the other game of the relegation playoffs is between Roscommon and Wicklow at 2:00 as well. These games, like we spoke there about big performances, like these teams are going to want to go into it. I think of these 4 teams, neither of them had gone into championship going, we're going to finish bottom of the group. We're going all, hell for leather and trying to get the performances. I think Wicklow can definitely take a lot from the game against Roscommon. I know, Joanne, you played them. Roscommon are a very, very strong team, and I know they'll be wanting to pick themselves back now after the defeat to you guys.
Yeah, like I feel like Roscommon had, again, like some days it just goes for teams, and I do think we just kind of clicked against Roscommon. I feel like they'll probably be annoyed at their performance, like especially their full forward line, like Hanley, and like they've some very, very good players that probably just didn't really kick into gear, and like they can, and it's these big games that they will be able to do that, or well, hopefully they'll be hoping that they will be able to do that. So I reckon they'll be wanting to put in a big performance, and just kind of, I suppose anyone in that situation just wants to park this championship and just get safe in this round. But like that, Wicklow are gunning. Like Wicklow aren't going to go away either. Like, and I think we probably didn't give them enough credit against Monaghan. Like the fact that, they really, wanted to put a mark down. Like unless they beat Monaghan by a lot, they weren't even going to make that group. So I think they still have a lot to play for, and they don't want to be going down either. So yeah, I think it'll be a very good game to be reckoned with.
And then we look at another of the Ulster contingent in Down. Down are a very strong team. They want to be back up in intermediate as well. They're coming up against Offaly. Offaly, I think, were very much dejected coming off the field after a second defeat in a row. They had, looked to kick on from the league and to try and put the best foot forward and not be in a relegation battle again this year. Unfortunately, that's the reality for them now this weekend. But Down are very, very strong. I know you've history, Joanne. You'll see them with Ulster teams. You'll always come up against one of each other in some form of a competition. And Down are a team that they'll want to be intermediate again next year.
Yeah, again, and obviously we see a lot more from the Ulster teams, like, and even going to college with a lot of the girls as well. Like, you see a lot more about them, but like even the performances in Ulster this year, I'm personally shocked that they're in a relegation playoff. Like, so I reckon they'll be pretty disappointed that they're in this situation. And I reckon they're not gonna be going down without a fight anyway. So they have some, like Clara Mulvena, like captain as well. Like I know her and played with her, like that she's a fantastic leader too, and I know really that she's going to have them gunned up for this weekend, that it isn't something like, it's not just a matter of turning up, that they'll be going to make sure that they get a win. But like you said, Offaly probably are a wee bit dejected too from the last two games, but I do think that there will be, again, nobody's going to go into them situations thinking that they're going to go down really, but you'd be so scared to call things, but I'll probably put my money on down just because I know more of the down girls realistically.
But like, even as across the board, like even last week's senior results that we just spoke about at the start of the podcast, like you just don't know. And we're going to touch on junior very shortly. And again, some results there that have absolutely blown the scene wide open for the All-Ireland this year. As we did with the senior, we'll just take a look at the forwards that have been performing the best for their teams this year. Aisling Gilsenan, as I mentioned, top scorer in the Intermediate Championship this year with 19 points in her 2 games. Ava Sherry from Monaghan with 3 goals and 8 points tallied this year. Of course, Emer Smith from Fermanagh in 3rd spot with a goal and 12, tied with Cirque Normally from Tyrone with 3 goals and 6. Of course, those 2 players in action this weekend in the quarter-final tie, so we'll see which top scorer comes out of those 2. Emer Fitzpatrick, Joanne, of course, mentioned there about Down. She scored a goal and 10 points. And you have Aoife Horace, because I mentioned it, and Cueva Lennon from Roscommon. Of course, for people that are listening to this on the audio version, you're probably like, what is he putting up? So all scores from the championships are available on the Final Whistle website. And if we're wrong with any scores, just let us know and we'll make any adjustments to the stats that are there. Now, let's talk junior. We had, we've spoken in length about the dramatics of the senior championship, and obviously we just looked ahead there to the quarterfinal ties. The junior championship at the weekend had some standout performances from teams to book their place into the semi-finals already. Group 1 is a formality, and Group 1 has been quite dramatic this year in that we'll take a look at the league table. Sligo and Louth will be in the semi-finals this year. Limerick, out of the championship, semi-finalists last year. Their hopes of making back into semi-finals dashed against Sligo this weekend with a 2-13-1 defeat on Sunday afternoon. Sligo looking absolutely fantastic. The likes of Leah Duffy, Ellen Kelleher getting 5 points each, and Tara Breheny with a goal and 2, and Sarah Feeney getting on the board as well. Louth, again, another standout performance. They got the win over Derry, and by half time they were 14 points clear at 2-9 to a point up, with Emer Byrne and Kate Flood managing to put 2-10. They accumulated for 2-10 between them. 2 fantastic players for Louth. And now they're going to play each other this weekend. The winner of that game will finish in top spot. Loser is guaranteed second place. From the perspective, Claire, I know you mentioned, you talk about provincial rivals and the forms of Mayo that'll be, not neighbours, but they're close enough to you. You look at Sligo, not a million miles away from Leitrim. They've been battling ferociously over the years. You played them in Division 4 of the league earlier this year. How impressed were you by them?
Very impressed. Sligo are they've got a lot of great young players who are really kind of coming of age, let's call it, and they're still very young, but really impressive. I think the way they play, they've got, their wing backs attack at speed, and they're just very, very well set up all over the field. And it's a relatively new team. Like, there's a lot of players, when I think back to when I started, or even was halfway through my career, there's a lot of, I would recognize very few of the names, but they are, like I say, really, really well set up, and they play with the sort of, what would you call it? They're very refreshing to watch, and the way they play is in a very positive manner. They're very well set up defensively, but they want to score, and that range of the 3 players there who contributed 5 points between points and a goal and 2, like you said, Diarmuid. So as a defence setting up against them, where do you start there? If someone can, a point or 2, great, well done you, but to score 4 or 5 points in a game and contribute that to the scoreboard and have that range of scorers is a real special weapon to have in your team. Because
Sligo, it seems to be the year of Sligo. I know obviously they didn't get to where you guys got in Division 4 and got into a semi-final and were trying to fight for silverware and to get promoted. But they built from that. They got into the All-Ireland series. You know, they were fantastic against Limerick. Limerick, they tried to get back there. They were trailing by a goal and 2 to 9 points at half time. They tried to kick back in the second half, but Sligo just showcased their attacking talents. You know, it really came to fruition. Now you're looking at a team like Louth. I know, Joanne, you played them last year. Like, there's a lot to the Louth team. It's not just the way you have to set up, because I know we'll say your defence when you were looking last year, obviously you're looking at Kate Flood. I spoke about Emer Byrne there and her performance. Then you have the likes of Aoife Halligan and Anya Breen in midfield, and the way that they can transition defence into attack and can try and win you ball, win that breaking ball and try and get you up the other field to create the scores. And then you have Shannon McLaughlin and Shoda Matthews that will run. I'd say they ran nearly every blade of Crow Park last year and would run every blade of grass for you across any pitch in Ireland to get you those scores. Like, there's a lot that teams will have to do to try and do their homework against Louth.
Yeah, funny. That was one of the interesting things last year, that, you know, we actually had forwards nearly man marking because their half backs were so attacking. And, you know, it is something that you have to think about, and you have to, I suppose, like any team that's playing up against them has to do their homework on, because that's a forward's worst nightmare is those attacking defenders. Like, and, you know, when they're getting on the scoreboard and you're not, it's a bit of an ego killer. Like, so no, Louth have some fantastic players, and I know they were disappointed last year, and there's change in management and thing. I think they are really going to get out of that junior division again, and I've no doubt that they will do really well this year. But like, it's the exact same for Sligo, and I think Clare mentioned a lot of it too. They nearly play the same way, in that they have them attacking half backs that are so speedy, and again, a forward, if they're just after attacking and they're exhausted, their player running back up the field is the worst thing you want to deal with. Like, but again, really, really strong runners, you know, Regan through the middle and all too. Like, that is such a link player and can create chances from nothing. So it's actually going to be a really interesting game to see, because I reckon they could meet again potentially down the line as well.
It's going to be an interesting tie to see the two of them, see who's going to come out on top. I think it's been a very absorbing junior championship so far. They've had to put in a lot of strong performances, allowed going into this game unbeaten as well. So interesting to see how Sligo managed to get on in this game. Sligo, like, they have been, I think, just a joy to watch. And it's two teams that are unbeaten going up against it. Final day, winner gets top spot. Let's talk about the other side of the bracket. So we're going to have them. They're going to be in a semi-final. So it's either one of them is going to be playing second in the other group, and one of them is going to be playing the top seed in the other group. That's going to be determined this weekend. And we'll just take a look at the league table. Longford, another fantastic result at the weekend. They got the better of London. Absolutely rampant performance by them over in Ruislip to win 4-18 to 3 points. They wasted absolutely no time in stamping their authority. Shauna Hagan and Camille Burke scoring, and they were 2-2 to no score up after 6 minutes, and were 2-8 ahead to no score at half time. And then you've Claude Lowen and Shane Gallagher getting on the scoreboard with a couple of goals, and by the third quarter mark they were leading by 4-16 to 2 points. But that result now means that this weekend's game between Carlow and Antrim will determine how the group finishes up. If Carlow can get the win at home to Antrim, Carlow will finish second and Antrim will finish first. However, if Antrim manage to get the result, then we will see Longford going in as the second seed. You guys both played Longford in Division 4 of the league this year. I know, Claire, you played them toward the latter stages of the league and you drew with them. I believe you played them in Kiltubber. It was a very, very close game between the two of you. And Joanne, you went down and you played them in Longford. You won. Yeah, you won by 6 points in the end. Of course, you scored 6 points that day, and you had the likes of Emer Smith, as I mentioned. Emer was absolutely flying it, and you Blaheen, they both scored 2 goals each. We'll start with Joanne when I asked this question. Like, you obviously got over the line against Longford, but what elements of their game impressed you to now see them be potentially 60 minutes away from an All-Ireland semi-final?
definitely they're between their midfield now. Correct me, it's the names that get me. But there was a fantastic girl in midfield, and she was so quick, and their forward play, they were the nippiest forwards probably that we had played this year, and probably one of our most like that we had to do the analysis on, probably to make sure that we did not let them play the way that they wanted to play, and that probably, I suppose, contributed to our win that day. Like our defense was, what I have to say, phenomenal that day. And it did work out in our favour that we kind of got that lead early, and I think that we kind of just grew on that momentum. And again, that's just one game of the year that, you know, they mightn't have showed up as much as as we did that day, but they were definitely an impressive team. And even the defensive structure, like even say when we did get a goal, they were, you know, when some teams kind of shy away then from the kick out or anything, they were going and they were straight on it. They knew exactly what to do the next play, that it was a constant game where you didn't feel like you could switch off from too. So I do reckon they probably have shocked a few like people this year by making it so far, but also I can believe that they made it that far too from meeting them this year.
And Claire, then from your own perspective, I know Joanne has mentioned the forward threat that Longford are bringing. They did bring it when you played them earlier on in the league and ended up ending in a stalemate that day. Again, Longford, they do look very sharp and look like they can put it up to anyone in the junior championship.
Yeah, definitely. I can't quite remember. I think we got the last goal to draw that game. I think they were actually a point up now. I could be wrong, but I recall it being a dodgy finish. But they were very good, yeah. And Joanne mentioned the forward threat, but even defensively, I thought they were very, very well set up, and their transition was strong. And actually, that day against us, I'm not sure the personnel at the minute, but they brought on subs that really made an impact. Like, you know, they finished the game out really well for them and brought kind of an energy that, you know, that's what you want from a sub, that they come in and the other team are having to worry about who's picking up that player and who's meant to be on her and all that kind of thing. So, yeah, Longford always thereabouts. Like, I'm not surprised to see them doing well here. I love that group, that it's still kind of all to play for this weekend. For the neutral, it's great. But it's good for the championship as well. I think that it's not kind of foregone conclusion on both sides of the table. So yeah, I'd back Longford, and you know, they kind of had a couple of years there maybe where they didn't have all their players in that were, you know, within the club scene, and it's nice to see that back. Like, we've probably all been there at some point, and regardless of whether they're opposition that could threaten your season or not, you want to see teams moving in the right direction. So I'm personally delighted. Like, they're my neighbours anyway in my part of Leitrim, and I'm really glad to see them back moving well and going places.
And it's not even up to them now this weekend. They need Antrim to get a result against Carlow. I'd say there might be a few busloads of people from Longford going down to Carlow wearing Antrim jerseys trying to cheer them on and try and get them over the line. When you look at Carlow, like we spoke earlier on about teams that they need big performances. Like Carlow, after that Longford defeat, will now need a big 60 minutes to get over the line against Antrim. Both of you guys have experienced Antrim. I know, Joanne, with the way the league transpired against them, they're very, very strong. As I mentioned last week, they have this fantastic unbeaten record. Like, what do you think Carlow have to do to try and get over the line against Antrim?
Yeah, look at, like, obviously the standout is probably the Hansi, like thinking like if you can kind of stop her, she does do a lot of the playmaking, and you know, she's everywhere on the field. Like we found, like, you know, she was dragging our like centre half backs into our forward line, you know, and then trying to lose them on the transition, you know, and they are good at doing that. And we were actually talking about Antrim, how they've just like this. It's not an arrogance, but they've a really confidence around them, like, you know, and you know, like you said, well, they haven't lost this year, so they have every right to be like that, you know. So they definitely play with confidence, and you see that in them. Like, you know, if they hit it wide, it doesn't faze them, you know, where certain players you kind of see them, okay, now I'm getting into their own head, whereas you don't have that against Antrim no matter what the score is, you know. So they're definitely a team that, you know, are just hugely competitive, hugely driven, and are on a really unstoppable kind of run now. But Carlo, like they've been in this situation for how many years? I'd say they really are just probably using that probably hurt and wanting to get over that line, but they've left themselves, I suppose, in that kind of tricky situation to be a team that hasn't been beaten this year. But again, it all goes down, like Antrim hasn't much to play for really. You don't know what way they're gonna do. You rest players, do you not? Maybe you do, I don't know. It just is going to be an interesting weekend of football for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure that starting Antrim team will be interesting to see if they are going to rest anyone, knowing they are guaranteed, unless Carlo were to win by over 30 points. I think they are very much guaranteed top spot in that group. We have two top of the table clashes, of course, in those groups. We spoke about Louth and Sligo. Winner of that, of course, takes top spot in one group. If Carlo can beat Antrim, and so on and so forth. Other game of the week, Kilkenny against Derry. Both of those teams just playing for a bit of pride, trying to get their first win on the board. Derry have had a couple of tough defeats, as have Kilkenny. So I think for both of them, just playing for a bit of pride to see out the year on a high.
Yeah, sure. Look, you any day you pull on your county jersey and go out and get the chance to represent your county is a proud day and a special day. So, look, I think, obviously Derry have, had a disappointing season. And, as for Kilkenny, I really do. This sounds it might sound condescending or patronising, and I don't mean it in either of those ways. I mean it in the best possible way. They show up every year and play their football, and you can see that it means a lot to those girls. Obviously, camogie is the stronger sport in their county, but for the girls who choose football or choose both in some cases, it is admirable to go to show up and do that every year, and that is what they do. So yeah, like you said, Diarmuid, it's pride, but there'll be no shortage of it in that game from both teams.
I know they have gone to games where they might have even had 15 and they've gone out, they've played until the final whistle, just trying to do everything that they can for Kilkenny, and fair dues to them. They're doing fantastic work down there to grow the sport in a county, as you said, where camogie is the dominant sport, and a lot of girls in that panel are both dual athletes as well, with Kilkenny, of course, involved in the various camogie championships as well. We'll take a look, as we have done for the other two, just at the junior players that have lighten up the posts this year. Limerick's Deborah Murphy has 2 goals and 19 points and is the leading top scorer in the pack in the junior championship. Maria O'Neill from Antrim just behind her with 3 goals and 19 points. Then you've Kate Flood, as we mentioned, from Louth with 2 goals and 11 points. And then you've the likes of Leah Duffy there with a goal and 12. And then joining them, the Longford duo, Clodagh Lohan with 2 goals and 8 points. And Camille Burke with 3 goals and 5. They've been some standout players in the championship this year. On a total, we also have a graphic of the top scorers across the board as well. Just see how the junior and intermediate players and the senior players line up in terms of their scoring ability. And it's Limerick's Deborah Murphy by 1 point over Hannah Tyrrell at the top of the scoring charts. Ashton Gilson, of course, from Cavan in 3rd. Maria O'Neill of Antrim in 4th in the overall scorers charts. Then you have Kate Flood and Ava Sheehy both tied there. And then you've Emer Smith and Leah Duffy tied on 15 tally with a goal and 12 each. And then you've Sorka Gormley and Kate Sullivan as well. Some fantastic forwards that have just been lighting up the championship this year. But this weekend and next week's episode, there could be a lot. I think this week's one was always going to be a busy one with everything that transpired from senior to the junior championship. Now we'll have relegation battles this week, massive quarter-final ties. So I think next week's episode will be very interesting. Joanne, we hope you'll be back with us next week and you won't want to reflect on a defeat to Tyrone. So we hope.
If I'm not on, you know why.
I'll hold the fort, Joanne.
It could just be me and Claire for next week. Joanne might go missing. She might want to. We could be there on Sunday in the WhatsApp group. She's like, lads, do you want to do the podcast now?
Exactly. Let's hope.
Someone asked me a question.
Yeah.
But this weekend is shaping up to be a fantastic weekend. The business end of the championship begins now in the intermediate series. Junior championship wrapping up. And then, of course, we'll have a look ahead to the senior championship quarterfinals and the relegation playoffs next week. So that's episode 3 in the bag. We'll be back for episode 4 next week. Hopefully all 3 of us will be here, as we mentioned. And we do wish Joanne the very best of luck. We're not one bit biased in that game between Tyrone and Fermanagh. We wish all the teams definitely the best of luck this weekend. And if it's anything like last week, the Ladies Championship is going to be thriving with some of the results. And if you want tables, fixtures, the results and everything, make sure to head over to the finalwhistle.ie website. And if there's any fixture changes between now and the end of the week, heading into the weekend, make sure we'll have those on the site. My thanks to the two girls for joining me once again. And we hope you have enjoyed episode 3 of the Ladies Football Podcast here on finalwhistle.ie. And we'll see you next week for episode 4.